Book 2, Chapter 8 of the Lancashire Witches. This recording is in the public domain. Reading by Andy Minter. The Lancashire Witches, a Romance of Pendle Forest, by William Harrison Ainsworth. Book 2, Pendle Forest. Chapter 8 Rough Lee. On returning from their unsuccessful pursuit of James Device, the two Asshetons found Roger Nowell haranguing the hinds, who, on the flight of their leader, would have taken to their heels likewise, if they had not been detained, partly by the energetic efforts of Sparshot and the grooms, and partly by the exhortations and menaces of the magistrate and Holden. As it was, two or three contrived to get away, and fled across the moor, whither the reeve pretended to pursue them, while those left behind were taken sharply to task by Roger Nowell. "Listen to me," he cried, "and take good heed to what I say, for it concerns you nearly. Strange and dreadful things have come under my observation on the way hither. I have seen a whole village stricken as by a plague, a poor pedlar deprived of the use of his limbs and put in peril of his life, and a young maiden, once the pride and ornament of your own village, snatched from a fond father's care, and borne to an untimely grave. These things I have seen with my own eyes, and I am resolved that the perpetrators of these enormities, Mothers Demdike and Chattox, shall be brought to justice. As to you, the deluded victims of the impious hags, I can easily understand why you shut your eyes to their evil doings. Terrified by their threats, you submit to their exactions, and so become their slaves slaves of the bond slaves of Satan. What miserable servitude is this! By so doing, you not only endanger the welfare of your souls, by leaguing with the enemies of heaven, and render yourselves unworthy to be classed with a religious and Christian people, but you place your lives in jeopardy by becoming accessories to the crimes of those great offenders, and render yourselves liable to the punishment with them. Seeing then the imminency of the peril in which you stand, you will do well to avoid it while there is yet time. Nor is this your only risk. Your servitude to Mistress Nutter is equally perilous. What if she be the owner of the land you till and the flocks you tend? You owe her no fealty. She has forfeited all title to your service, and so far from aiding her, you ought to regard her as a great criminal, whom you are bound to bring to justice. I have now incontestable proofs of her dealing in the black art, and can show that by witchcraft she has altered the face of this country with the intent to rob me of my land." Holden now took up the theme. The finger of Heaven is pointed against such robbery," he cried. "Cursed is he, saith the Scripture, that removeth his neighbour's landmark. And again it is written, Cursed is he that smiteth his neighbour secretly. Both these things hath Mistress Nutter done, and for both she shall incur divine vengeance." "Neither shall she escape that of man," added Roger Nowell, severely, "for our sovereign lord hath enacted that all persons employing or rewarding any evil spirit shall be held guilty of felony, and shall suffer death. And death will be her portion, for such demoniacal agency most assuredly hath she employed." The magistrate here paused for a moment to regard his audience, and reading in their terrified looks that his address had produced the desired impression, he continued with increased severity. "These wicked women shall trouble the land no longer. They shall be arrested and brought to judgment, and if you do not heartily bestir yourselves in their capture, and undertake to appear in evidence against them, you shall be held and dealt with as accessories in their crimes." Upon this, the hinds, who were greatly alarmed, declared with one accord their willingness to act as the magistrate should direct. "You do wisely," cried Potts, who by this time had made his way back to the assemblage, covered from head to foot with ooze, as on his former misadventures. "Mistress Nutter and the two old hags who hold you in thrall would lead you to destruction. For understand, it is the firm determination of my respected client, Master Roger Nowell, as well as myself, not to relax in our exertions till the whole of these pestilent witches who trouble the country be swept away, and to spare none who assist and uphold them." The hinds stared aghast, for so grim was the appearance of the attorney, that they almost thought that Hobhurst, the lubber fiend, was addressing them. At this moment old Henry Mitton came up. He had partially recovered from the stunning effects of the blow dealt him by James Device, but his head was cut open, and his white locks were dabbled in blood. Pushing his way through the assembly, he stood before the magistrate. "If you want a witness again that foul murderess and witch, Alice Nutter, call me, Master Roger Nowell," he said. "I can take my Bible oath that the whole face of this country has been changed since yesternight by her handiwork. Call me also to speak to her former life, to her intimacy with Mother Demdike and old Chattox. Call me to prove her constant attendance at Devil's Sabbath on Pendle Hill and elsewhere, with other black and damning offences, and among them the murder by witchcraft of her husband, Richard Nutter." A thrill of horror pervaded the assemblage at this denunciation, and Master Potts, who was being cleansed from his sable stains by one of the grooms, cried out "This is the very man for us, my excellent client. Your name and abode, friend?" "Harry Mitton of Rough Lee," replied the old man. "I dwelt there 70 years and upwards, and have known the father and grandfather of Richard Nutter, and also Alice Nutter, when she were Alice Assheton. Call me, sir, and all you want to know you shall learn." "We will call you, my good friend," said Potts; "and if you have sustained any private wrongs from Mistress Nutter, they shall be amply redressed." "I ha' endured much at her hands," rejoined Mitton, "but I dunna speak of myself. It be high time the Toad Scratch should have his claws clipped, and honest folk be allowed to live in peace." "Very true, my worthy friend, very true," assented Potts. An immediate return to Whalley was now proposed by Nowell, but Master Potts was of the opinion that, as they were in the neighbourhood of Malkin Tower, they should proceed thither at once, and effect the arrest of Mother Demdike, after which Mother Chattox could be sought out and secured. The presence of these two witches would be most important, he declared, in the examination of Mistress Nutter. Hue and cry for the fugitive, James Device, ought also to be made throughout the forest. Confounded by what they had heard, Richard and Nicholas had hitherto taken no part in the proceedings, but they now seconded Master Potts's proposition, hoping that the time occupied by the visit to Malkin Tower would prove serviceable to Mistress Nutter, for they did not doubt that intelligence would be conveyed to her by some of her agents of Nowell's intention to arrest her. Additional encouragement was given to the plan by the arrival of Richard Baldwin, who at this juncture rode furiously up to the party. "Well, have you settled your business here, Master Nowell?" he asked, in breathless anxiety. "We have so far settled it that we have established proofs of witchcraft against Mistress Nutter," replied Nowell. "Can you speak to her character, Baldwin?" "Ay, that I can," rejoined the miller, "and naught good. I wish to see these mischievous witches burned, and that's why I have ridden after you, Master Nowell. I want your help and a magistrate against Mother Demdike. You are a constable with her, and so can arrest her at once." "You have come most opportunely, Baldwin," observed Potts. "We were just considering whether we should go to Malkin Tower." "Then decide on't," rejoined the miller, "or th' old hag will escape you. Take her unawares." "I don't know that we shall take her unawares, Baldwin," said Potts; "but I am decidedly of opinion that we should go thither without delay. Is Malkin Tower far off?" "About a mile fro' Rough Lee," replied the miller. "Go back with me to the mill, where you can refresh yourselves, and I'll get together some dozen of my friends, and then we'll go up to the tower together." "A very good suggestion," said Potts, "and no doubt Master Nowell will accede to it." "We have force enough already, it appears to me," observed Nowell. "I should think so," replied Richard. "Some dozen men armed against a poor defenceless old woman are surely enough." "Oh, but no defenceless, Mr. Richard," rejoined Baldwin. "You canna go wi' too great force on an expedition like this. Malkin Tower's a very strong place, as yo'n find." "Well," said Nowell, "since we are here, I agree with Master Potts that it would be better to secure these two offenders. and convey them to Whalley, where their examination can take place at the same time as that of Mistress Nutter. We therefore accept your offer of refreshment, Baldwin, as some of our party may stand in need of it, and will at once proceed to the mill." "Well resolved, sir," said Potts. "Take the old witch, dead or alive?" cried Baldwin. "Alive! We must have her alive, good Baldwin," said Potts. "You must see her perish at the stake." "Reet, mon," cried the miller, his eyes blazing with fury. "That's true vengeance. I'll ride home and get all ready for you. You know the road." So saying, he struck spurs into his horse, and galloped off. Scarcely was he gone, than the reeve, who had kept out of his sight, came forward. "Since you have resolved upon going to Malkin Tower," he said to Nowell, "and have a sufficiently numerous party for the purpose, my further attendance can be dispensed with. I will ride in search of James Device." "Do so," replied the magistrate, "and let hue and cry be made after him." "It shall be," replied the reeve, "and if taken, he shall be conveyed to Whalley." And he made his way towards the clough, as if with the intention of putting his words into execution. Word was now given to set forward, and Master Potts having been accommodated with a horse by one of the grooms, who proceeded on foot, the party began to retrace their course to the mill. They were soon again by the side of Pendle Water, and ere long reached Rough Lee. As they rode through the close at the back of the mansion, Roger Nowell halted for a moment, and observed with a grim smile to Richard, "Never more shall Mistress Nutter enter that house. Within a week she shall be lodged in Lancaster Castle as a felon of the darkest dye, and she shall meet a felon's fate. And not only shall she be sent thither, but all her partners in guilt, Mother Demdike and her accursed brood, the Devices, old Chattox and her granddaughter, Nance Redferne. Not one shall escape." "You do not include Alizon Device in your list," cried Richard. "I include all. I will spare none," rejoined Nowell, sternly. "Then I will move no further with you," said Richard. "How!" cried Nowell. "Are you an upholder of these witches? Beware what you do, young man. Beware how you take part with them. You will bring suspicion upon yourself, and get entangled in a net from which you will not easily escape." "I care not what may happen to me," rejoined Richard. "I will never lend myself to gross injustice, such as you are about to practise. Since you announce your intention of including the innocent with the guilty, of exterminating a whole family for the crimes of one or two of its members, I have done. You have made dark accusations against Mistress Nutter, but you have proved nothing. You assert that by witchcraft she has changed the features of your land, but in what way can you make good the charge? Old Mitton has indeed volunteered himself as a witness against her, and has accused her of most heinous offences; but he has at the same time shown that he is her enemy, and his testimony will be regarded with doubt. I will not believe her guilty on mere suspicion, and I deny that you have aught more to proceed upon." "I shall not argue the point with you now, sir," replied Nowell, angrily. "Mistress Nutter will be fairly tried, and if I fail in my proofs against her, she will be acquitted. But I have little fear of such a result," he added, with a sinister smile. "You are confident, sir, because you know there would be every disposition to find her guilty," replied Richard. "She will not be fairly tried. All the prejudices of ignorance and superstition, heightened by the published opinions of the king, will be arrayed against her. Were she as free from crime or thought of crime as a new born babe, once charged with the horrible and inexplicable offence of witchcraft, she would scarce escape. You go determined to destroy her." "I will not deny it," said Roger Nowell, "and I am satisfied that I shall render good service to society by freeing it from so vile a member. So abhorrent is the crime of witchcraft, that were my own son suspected, I would be the first to deliver him to justice. Like a noxious and poisonous plant, the offence has taken deep root in this country, and is spreading its baneful influence around, so that if it is not extirpated, it may spring up anew, and cause incalculable mischief. But it shall now be effectively checked. Of the families I have mentioned, not one shall escape, and if Mistress Nutter herself had a daughter, she should be brought to judgment. In such cases, children must suffer for the sins of the parents." "You have no regard, then, for their innocence?" said Richard, who felt as if a weight of calamity was crushing him down. "Their innocence must be proved at the proper tribunal," rejoined Nowell. "It is not for me to judge them." "But you do judge them," cried Richard, sharply. "In making the charge, you know that you pronounce the sentence of condemnation as well. This is why the humane man, why the just man, would hesitate to bring an accusation, even where he suspected guilt; but where suspicion could not possibly attach, he would never suffer himself, however urged on by feelings of animosity, to injure the innocent." "You ascribe most unworthy motives to me, young sir," rejoined Nowell, sternly. "I am influenced only by a desire to see justice administered, and I shall not swerve from my duty because my humanity may be called in question by a love sick boy. I understand why you plead thus warmly for these infamous persons. You are enthralled by the beauty of the young witch, Alizon Device. I noticed how you were struck by her yesterday, and I heard what Sir Thomas Metcalfe said on the subject. But take heed what you do. You may jeopardise both soul and body in the indulgence of this fatal passion. Witchcraft is exercised in many ways. Its professors have not only power to maim and to kill, and to do other active mischief, but to ensnare the affections and endanger the souls of their victims by enticing them to unhallowed love. Alizon Device is comely to view, no doubt, but who shall say whence her beauty is derived? Hell may have arrayed her in its fatal charms. Sin is beautiful, but all destructive, and the time will come when you may thank me for delivering you from the snares of this seductive siren." Richard uttered an angry exclamation. "Not now. I do not expect it. You are too much besotted by her," pursued Nowell. "But I conjure you to cast off this wicked and senseless passion, which, unless checked, will lead you to perdition. You have heard what abominable rites are practised at these unholy meetings, called Devil's Sabbaths, and how can you say that some demon may not be your rival in Alizon's love?" "You pass all licence, sir," cried Richard, infuriated past endurance; "and if you do not instantly retract the infamous accusation you have made, neither your age nor your office shall protect you." "I can fortunately protect myself, young man," replied Nowell, coldly; "and if aught were wanting to confirm my suspicions that you were under some evil influence, it would be supplied by your present conduct. You are bewitched by this girl." "It is false," cried Richard, and he raised his hand against the magistrate, when Nicholas quickly interposed. "Nay, cousin Dick," cried the squire, "this must not be. You must take other means of defending the poor girl, whose innocence I will maintain as stoutly as yourself. But since Master Roger Nowell is resolved to proceed to extremities, I shall likewise take leave to retire." "Your pardon, sir," rejoined Nowell. "You will not withdraw till I think fit. Master Richard Assheton, forgetful alike of the respect due to age and constituted authority, has ventured to raise his hand against me, for which, if I chose, I could place him in immediate arrest. But I have no such intention. On the contrary, I am willing to overlook the insult, attributing it to the frenzy by which he is possessed. But both he and you, Master Nicholas, are mistaken if you suppose I will permit you to retire. As a magistrate, in the exercise of my office, I call upon you both to aid me in the capture of the two notorious witches, Mothers Demdike and Chattox, and not to desist or depart from me till such capture be effected. You know the penalty of refusal?" "Heavy fine or imprisonment, at the option of the magistrate," remarked Potts. "My cousin Nicholas will do as he pleases," observed Richard; "but for my part I will not stir a step further." "Nor will I," added Nicholas, "unless I have Master Nowell's solemn pledge that he will take no proceedings against Alizon Device." "You can give no such assurance, sir," whispered Potts, seeing the magistrate wavered in his resolution. "You must go, then," said Nowell, "and take the consequences of your refusal to act with me. Your relationship to Mistress Nutter will not tell in your favour." "I understand the implied threat," said Nicholas, "and laugh at it. Richard, lad, I am with you. Let him catch the witches himself if he can. I will not budge an inch further with him." "Farewell, then, gentlemen," replied Roger Nowell. "I am sorry to part company with you thus, but when next we meet " and he paused. "We meet as enemies, I presume," supplied Nicholas. "We meet no longer as friends," rejoined the magistrate, coldly. With this he moved forward with the rest of the troop, while the two Asshetons, after a moment's consultation, passed through a gate, and made their way to the back of the mansion, where they found one or two men on the look out, from whom they received intelligence which induced them immediately to spring from their horses and hurry into the house. Arrived at the principal entrance of the mansion, which was formed by large gates of open ironwork, admitting a view of the garden and front of the house, Roger Nowell again called a halt, and Master Potts, at his request, addressed the porter and two other serving men who were standing in the garden in this fashion: "Pay attention to what I say to you, my men," he cried, in a loud and authoritative voice. "A warrant will this day be issued for the arrest of Alice Nutter of Rough Lee, in whose service you have hitherto dwelt, and who is charged with the dreadful crime of witchcraft, and with invoking, consulting, and covenanting with, entertaining, employing, feeding, and rewarding evil spirits, contrary to the laws of God and man, and in express violation of his Majesty's statute. Now take notice, that if the said Alice Nutter shall at any time hereafter return to this her former abode, or take refuge within it, you are hereby bound to deliver her up forthwith to the nearest constable, to be by him brought before the worshipful Master Roger Nowell of Read, in this county, so that she may be examined by him on these charges. You hear what I have said?" The men exchanged significant glances, but made no reply. Potts was about to address them, but to his surprise he saw the central door of the house thrown open, and Mistress Nutter issue from it. She marched slowly and majestically down the broad gravel walk towards the gate. The attorney could scarcely believe his eyes, and he exclaimed to the magistrate, with a chuckle, "Who would have thought of this? We have her safe enough now." But no corresponding smile played upon Nowell's hard lips. His gaze was fixed inquiringly upon the lady. Another surprise. From the same door issued Alizon Device, escorted by Nicholas and Richard Assheton, who walked on either side of her, and the three followed Mistress Nutter slowly down the broad walk. Such a display seemed to argue no want of confidence. Alizon did not look towards the group outside the gates, but seemed listening eagerly to what Richard was saying to her. "So, Master Nowell," cried Mistress Nutter, boldly, "since you find yourself defeated in the claims you have made against my property, you are seeking to revenge yourself, I understand, by bringing charges against me as false as they are calumnious. But I defy your malice, and can defend myself against your violence." "If I could be astonished at anything in you, madam, I should be at your audacity," rejoined Nowell. "But I am glad that you have presented yourself before me, for it was my fixed intention, on my return to Whalley, to cause your arrest, and your unexpected appearance here enables me to put my design into execution somewhat sooner than I anticipated." Mistress Nutter laughed scornfully. "Sparshot," vociferated Nowell, "enter these gates, and arrest the lady in the king's name." The beadle looked irresolute. He did not like the task. "The gates are fastened," cried Mistress Nutter. "Force them open, then," roared Nowell, dismounting and shaking them furiously. "Bring me a heavy stone. By heaven, I will not be baulked of my prey." "My servants are armed," cried Mistress Nutter, "and the first man who enters shall pay the penalty of his rashness with his life. Bring me a petronel, Blackadder." The order was promptly obeyed by the ill-favoured attendant who was stationed near the gate. "I am in earnest," said Mistress Nutter, aiming the petronel, "and seldom miss my mark." "Give attention to me, my men," cried Roger Nowell. "I charge you, in the king's name, to throw open the gate." "And I charge you, in mine, to keep it fast," rejoined Mistress Nutter. "We shall see who will be obeyed." One of the grooms now advanced with a large stone, taken from an adjoining wall, which he threw with great force against the gates, but though it shook them violently, the fastenings continued firm. Blackadder and the two other serving men, all of whom were armed with halberds, now advanced to the gates, and thrusting the points of their weapons through the bars, drove back those who were near them. A short consultation now took place between Nowell and Potts, after which the latter, taking care to keep out of the reach of the halberds, thus delivered himself in a loud voice. "Alice Nutter, in order to avoid the serious consequences which might ensue were the necessary measures taken to effect a forcible entrance to your habitation, the worshipful Master Nowell has thought fit to grant you an hour's respite for reflection, at the expiration of which time he trusts that you, seeing the futility of resisting the law, will quietly yield yourself a prisoner. Otherwise, no further leniency will be shown you, and those who may uphold you in your contumacy." Mistress Nutter laughed loudly and contemptuously. "At the same time," pursued Potts, on a suggestion from the magistrate, "Master Roger Nowell demands that Alizon Device, daughter of Elizabeth Device, whom he beholds in your company, and who is likewise suspected of witchcraft, be likewise delivered up to him." "Aught more?" inquired Mistress Nutter. "Only this," replied Potts, in a taunting tone. "The worshipful magistrate would offer a friendly counsel to Master Nicholas Assheton and Master Richard Assheton, whom, to his infinite surprise, he perceives in a hostile position before him, that they in no wise interfere with his injunctions, but, on the contrary, lend their aid in furtherance of them. Otherwise, he may be compelled to adopt measures towards them which must be a source of regret to him. I have furthermore to state, on the part of his worship, that strict watch will be kept at all the approaches of your house, and that no one, on any pretence whatever, during the appointed time of respite, will be suffered to enter it or depart from it. In an hour his worship will return." "And in an hour he shall have my answer," replied Mistress Nutter, turning away. CHAPTER IX.